Hello, everybody. Um, Welcome to GMI's Roundtable on how to continue professional development. We're going to spend about an hour on this topic. As a reminder, we're going to record this so that it can be made available on our YouTube channel. We're joined today by our three repeat GMI mentors. Sheila, I see you, so you might be able to speak. We have Alex, Rachel, and Sheila, who will introduce themselves. They'll share a little bit about their career journey so far and share anything that they've done so far in terms of professional development. Then we're going to move into some questions that were submitted from our GMI mentees for this topic. If you have any questions throughout the call, please feel free to type them into the Q&A, and if we have time at the end, we'll address them. If not, I'll certainly follow up with everybody. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here. Looking forward to chatting about this interesting topic. Alex Sanguinetti. I'm a blend of cultures, but spent half my growing up years in Jamaica, the other half primarily in the US. I went to college initially for undergraduate, did engineering at Carnegie Mellon, which is in Pennsylvania. Then I did a master's degree in business at UWI in Jamaica. I'm currently a fintech consultant and an entrepreneur. I've used professional development a lot, and in many different ways. Higher education with a master's degree, professional organizations, getting certificates from engineering, marketing, product management groups. I've also used online sources like Coursera and LinkedIn. I've done professional development on the job, where there's learning new software, working with mentors. And then there's a couple of areas too, I would just put in the other category, which is I've done things like learned a new language to help with my career, and done tons of reading of different kinds of books and authors. Thank you.
Rachel?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name's Rachel Muench. I went to Wake Forest University for undergraduate. I was a business major. I currently work at Microsoft as a global black belt is my title. It's just a fancy way of saying that I'm a technical specialist on a specific product. So I help complex AI transformation deals. So I work a lot with Copilot and GMI. I know we use some of those resources for applications and career building and identifying roles that might be of interest to us. So I spend a lot of time with that product and it's very exciting. Like Alex, I've done a lot of different things when it comes to professional development. I have joined a number of organizations to focus on building a specific skill, like Toastmasters, which is an organization that focuses largely on public speaking. I've sought out lots of different mentors, gained certifications in specific things, set aside time for on-the-job learning. I think that's super important. It's hard to find the time, but lots of reading, lots of podcasts. That tends to be my preferred method. Volunteered for stretch assignments, asked for more responsibility, things like that. Excited to chat with you all today.
Sheila?
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Almost thought I couldn't make it, but I'm glad to be here. And my name is Sheila Smith, and my background is I'm born and raised in Malaysia, but I've been in the United States now for about 34 years. So primarily, my career was pretty much here in the US. I did my undergrad, and I also did my master's in computer information systems. And I loved working with people, so I didn't like being behind the screen. And this was in the 90s. So I pivoted into corporate training. That was primarily my first 15 years. I was a corporate trainer in the Bay Area. And then the last 10 years before I left the corporate world, I was a process improvement project manager. So, a lot of things that Alex and Rachel have talked about in terms of how to develop professionally, I totally agree. It's having mentors, it's listening to podcasts, it's reading, it's a lot of it. I think it's very much connecting with people and finding out what opportunities is available. So especially, I think in the area that of your interest. So that's a little bit about myself.
Thank you very much for sharing. We're going to move into some of the prepared questions. So to get us started, why do you think it is important for professional development? Alex, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Super, super key. I have found that careers that sort of enable higher earning power need some level of skill sets that's going to take time and many times money. So many times just to get into that kind of profession, you need some level of accreditation. So whether it's a bachelor's degree or maybe later on when you move into management, you need an MBA. You're going to need some level of accreditation, which means, traditional professional development through school. But key to that, especially as you become successful over the years, there's also soft skills you need to develop, which are a bit trickier. A lot of that comes through talking to mentors, senior leadership to understand. And when I say soft skills, I mean things like communication skills, how to work in a team, how to lead a team, how to influence others. On the hard skills side, you're also going to need to be able to show that you can handle various levels of the work. So, do you know how to use different kinds of software? Do you have accounting skills? Can you understand marketing principles? The hard skills there may be that you need to show that you are qualified to do those things. And it depends on the career, what you'll need to know. The other couple things I would say are around sort of understanding, what are those skills that I need based on the career I've chosen? So look at job descriptions, whether it's the one you're trying to get in the door to your first job, or whether it's the job description of the job you want, your next step, whether it's a different career or it's the next level up. Understand what they're looking for, what they're asking for, and what are the gaps. So how do you get there? And hey, anything out there that you can gain or earn a certificate, do it, get it on your resume, show that you've achieved or learned that skill, especially if it's not something that's already part of what you're doing today. Get it on your resume, get it on your LinkedIn profile.
Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, I think professional development is vital because it ensures that you continue growing in your career, right? If you want to do anything beyond the role that you're currently in, or if you're not yet in a role, professional development is really going to be the car that gets you to your destination. I think it's necessary for finding those next opportunities. Beyond just finding new opportunities, I also think it's important for staying competitive, like Alex said, right? If you want to be competitive, somebody who is a higher earner or a higher achiever, it's absolutely necessary. It also helps you stay motivated, it helps you stay engaged and satisfied in your current job. I really look at it as an overall investment in your career and long-term goals and just a means of helping you get there.
Sheila?
And I have to say that Alex and Rachel covered it. I'm only going to take it from a different spin is, regrets. As you get older, you'll have regrets. So you don't want, right? Today I'm counting myself I'm in my 50s, but you don't want to look back 20, 30 years down the road and say, gosh, why didn't I do this when I had the opportunity, right? And if you're going to wait for somebody else to develop your career for you, you'll be waiting forever. No one is going to take that much of interest unless you put that effort for yourself. So I just wanted to share that is because if you learn how to do this when you're much younger, especially when you're in college, or getting out of college, it'll become a normal practice. And before you know it, you know what? It becomes, you look back 10 years or 15 or whatever years, you look back and you realize, oh, you know what? This is not as hard as I thought it is. And I can accomplish the things that I want to do in my personal life. Many things. People say, I want to buy this house. I want to buy this car. I want to take all these vacations. Well, nobody's going to give it to you, but you got to work your career. So that starts with professional development.
Yes, I agree that it's very important to start young. What are some challenges that you may face as you're trying to develop professionally? Is there anything that you've come across that was kind of like a showstopper, but you were able to overcome it as you were trying to progress in your career? Alex? Or Rachel or Sheila, if there's anything.
Yeah, after this, we could start with the ladies. Yeah, the obvious ones are cost and time, but sometimes, especially very early in your career, it's where do I even go to get it? So, like I said, the trickiest one many times is developing, soft skills. Where do I go to learn to be a better teammate? So to me, on the soft skills side, it's sort of looking at what I call non-structured resources. So talking about books and reading, like Sheila said earlier, looking out there for books that deal with those, and what are highly rated book, or which authors or speakers are highly thought of, or that maybe have caught your eye as you've bounced around online and looking at the news, or looking at your LinkedIn flow of articles coming in and out. Did someone catch your eye that, hey, that really made sense to me? So other non-structured resources, back to, I think, Rachel, you mentioned about mentors. Mentors can be formal or informal. You can have an assigned mentor. Maybe you got them through work, or maybe you found that you have a good rapport with a leader. And those are the kinds of people you want to go to and talk to them about, well, how do I develop these skills? What do you think? Even having conversations with people like that is a form of professional development, because you can learn from those conversations. So that's sort of the non-structured stuff. Cost and time, on the cost side, it's about, well, hey, I can't really afford to go back to school. I don't have the time to go back to school. So what are some of the different ways you can achieve that? There's so many online platforms now that are proliferated, like the Coursera I mentioned before, where you can manipulate your schedule in a way that you need to. So I'm going to study this for 3 hours a week until I finish that Coursera course. Or if you're using LinkedIn Learning, many times LinkedIn Learning is free. I don't have to spend any money on that. So those are some of my initial comments there.
Rachel, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think finding time is probably the one that gets in most people's way. Obviously cost, but like Alex said, there's so many free resources. And one of the beautiful things about like this era of AI that we're in is it's easier to find these resources than ever before. Like if you're looking for something, or if you have a specific goal, pop it into ChatGPT, pop it into Copilot, Gemini, whatever your AI of choice is, and ask. And like never before, you're going to get a list of really relevant resources, courses, tips, suggestions that we necessarily did not have access to when we started our professional development journeys. Something that I do that I find really helpful is I block my schedule to do professional development, right? It should be an ongoing thing, an ongoing practice that's just integrated into your day, your week. I find like Monday mornings, Friday afternoons quiet for me. I don't necessarily want to be working on my day job at those times all the time. So it's nice to ease into the week and end the week with a course or something like that, a conversation with a mentor. Other things that I've faced challenge-wise would just be staying motivated once you set a goal and stepping out of your comfort zone. Something for that I've found helpful is having a buddy. Like if you signed yourself up for a professional organization, or you're going to a networking event, invite a friend. It makes it a lot easier to step out of your comfort zone if you feel like you have somebody that's going to hold you accountable and be a little bit of a buffer that can be beside you.
Sheila?
Alex and Rachel beautifully laid out all the examples. And I just want to tie it in, because that's one thing I think sometimes, and again, because we have age a little bit of that experience, right? It boils down to mindset. If you want to look at something as hard and you want to say, oh my God, I don't have time, I got this commitment, I got this, and your plate will always be full. So, right, we have experts here, Alex and Rachel and myself. We've done it. We've been in the place where we've been stretched thin, and again, we still had to work towards developing our careers. So the point is, it wasn't always easy even for us. And Rachel brought up something very important. Thank you, Rachel. The time that when we were starting out, we didn't even have all these platforms like AI, things that you can just put in and get all your answers quickly, right? So the method of just starting with your mindset that I'm committed to do this, and if all I can carve out is 1 hour a week, if that's all I can, then that 1 hour becomes a normal practice in your life that's going to be dedicated for your professional development. And so I tied that in is because Alex and Rachel had so many examples. There's nothing else to add to that, but the main thing is it has to start with your mind. You're not going to give up on yourself. because no one's going to do it for you. Maybe I keep stressing that is because I think sometimes we have a tendency of thinking, oh, maybe down the road, the next job, I'll get a different boss. Maybe I'll have more time to do this or whatever. That moment, you cannot be thinking into the future. You got to plan what you have now. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
So then going off of that, is there a best time for professional development is what one of the questions was. Sheila, would you like to go first?
The best time is while you're still studying, because I look at it and I think if you start while you're in college, not waiting for someone to tell you how to do it once you get in the work front, right? So you have all the resources right in your fingertips. You got people, you got your counselors in your college to talk to if you need to figure out how to do this. You've got people that you know maybe who are working, tap into their insights. You've got mentoring programs like GMI, great. Look for opportunities. And one thing I loved doing, and I always did this even when I was younger, I think it's because I had older bosses and they kind of talked to me through this, is informational interviews. If you want to learn and you don't know what is it that you don't know, Alex brought it up earlier. It's the mentoring, except with informational interviewing. It's basically you connect with people in the work front and find out what are things that are successful. How do they get there? And these people don't have to be specifically in your own career track. I think sometimes it's good to kind of talk to people who are not in your career track because you get a wider view of seeing how they've applied different techniques in order to advance their career. So I think that would be something that I would say. Start while you're in college, and you'll get much more comfortable doing this in your career.
Rachel or Alex, anything else? Rachel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mentioned I intentionally build chunks of time into my calendar for professional development. And I think it's just an ongoing practice that the earlier, to Sheila's point, that you can put it in place and make it a part of your weekly routine while you're in college, like that should continue throughout your entire career because it's only gonna benefit you and help you. Something else that I always have in my calendar is every 6 months, I reevaluate my career plan. And I think just having that date with yourself where you're honest about your progress and your goals and future goals helps you align professional development or things that I want to be doing in those Monday and Friday time blocks that match up with my future goals so that I'm sort of working backwards. Like I have my end goal in mind, and then I can fill in my time blocks with things that I think are going to help get me there.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That makes total sense. Great comments. I think the only thing I had sort of noted to myself on this question as well was I have changed my career like a half dozen times over the years. And what I found is when professional development comes to be an important thing is when you need to shift gears. So if you're moving from one career to another, or if you've decided that you're determined to move up in the organization or move up somehow, that to help build that bridge to that new opportunity, professional development's key. So, and a more traditional one would be say, hey, I'm not going to be a doctor, now I'm going to be a teacher. Well, for sure, you're going to have to go back to school and get that teaching degree. In a less traditional thing, like let's say you're just trying to move up and you've talked to those mentors, you've done that one-on-one time and you've got like a short list of these are the areas I have to work on, then figure out what kind of professional development you can do to improve in those areas. And if any of those things can be formal things, like becoming a better teammate is pretty informal. But if it's, hey, I need to get certified in cloud management software, then go get it done and make sure it's on your resume because that's what you need to get, to where you need to get to. Thanks.
Did you set out with specific professional development goals at your job in mind? Like, did you set out to improve communication or take on more responsibility? Did you have a set plan in the beginning of your professional development? Rachel?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I talked about like I'm very intentional about setting specific goals and then working backwards and identifying what professional development activities or other things are going to help get me there. So, like I said, I do that every 6 months. In the past, something that I think has served me incredibly well, as I mentioned, I'm part of an organization called Toastmasters, which is focused on communication and public speaking. And I think especially as you want to get into upper management, or if you have a customer facing job, and especially as we're now in this era of AI where technical skills will be more democratized, like those soft skills are really, really important for setting yourself apart. Identifying things like that and being very intentional about going after them. I know Alex just mentioned that too, is how I've always looked at it. So I think it's most effective if you don't have a goal, you're sort of just randomly learning, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not necessarily going to get you or always line up with your desired destination.
Sheila, did you have a specific plan?
Yes, I did. When I started out, I'll just make this as a quick example. So when I started out, I knew I wanted to be a trainer, and this was in the maybe mid to late 90s. And so there was no real, like, no one could sit down and tell me how to get there. But I remember thinking, okay, I know I eventually want to do this job, but I need to move the levels up. So what I did was I actually looked at job descriptions for junior level trainer, intermediate level trainer, and a senior level trainer. And using those job descriptions, I said, okay, you know what? If I'm going to get to the first level, while I'm in the first level, how do I find opportunities in my current job that I could develop skill sets of the second level? So that was the plan. The plan is I had to figure out did I want to end up, and how do I take it step by step. So I used my example is because I think sometimes when you're starting out and if you don't even know where you want to go, it's a little harder to develop this. It's why it's very good to talk to a lot of people and have mentoring. But I also want to tap into what Rachel said, and she's emphasized this so well many times. You've got to have a goal, and then from that goal, you work backwards. So then you can put your little plans, the step by step, and then kind of track it. As she mentioned earlier, like taking every 6 months, that's a very good thing to do because if you don't track your career progress, it'll just sit there in one of those piles, those nice to-do lists that we have, but we never look at it, right? And then you're wondering, man, I've been stuck in this job for 2 years or 3 years or whatever years. I'm not going anywhere. Well, have a plan and start with a plan where you want to go to the next job. Get some job descriptions to look for the skills you want to develop, and then work towards finding opportunities to get to those skills. Alex?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I gotta admit, when I first started working after undergrad, I was not very focused. I was happy to get the paycheck. I was having a good time on the weekends. Wasn't really focused on professional development very much. But what happened was, and this is kind of funny because what Sheila just said is so true. After a couple of years, and this is kind of like the HR piece of it, you sit down with your boss every year, and unless you're doing terribly or you're doing amazingly, you all are going to get meeting expectations, which means you're in the middle of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, what it also means is that it's less likely your career is going to go anywhere super interesting. You may not get fired, but you may not also go anywhere really interesting. And I think after a couple of years of those, I thought to myself, so how do you move from meets expectations to exceeds expectations? And how do you move towards those jobs which look more interesting than what I'm doing today? I've been doing the same thing for 2 years. I'd love to do something different. So how do I get there? And that's for the first time when I started to think about, well, what are the areas I need to get better at? How do I go from one step to the next? So I started with my boss at the time and asked him, what's the difference? What makes the difference? And what areas could I focus on? And I think he gave me a laundry list. It may have been 12 things. I said, whoa, hey, how about just one or two things I can work on? And that became my mantra from there. It was, well, what one, two, three, maybe give me a top three. And then I would take that, and that would become my to-do list. So here's the 3 things I'm going to work on, and then how do I work on each one? And then that's just a habit that I created and kept for the rest of my career. It was every year have a laundry list that you're going to work on, make a plan for each one, and go forward from there. Thanks.
That's all great. I mean, I don't currently have a plan, but now listening to the 3 of you, I will be changing that. But so you all mentioned different platforms, programs that you've used. You said Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. Are there any other programs outside of your company that you've used? Anyone? And I know you mentioned podcasts. So like, is there anything else formal, or is it more so you also just kind of Google around in a sense and try to find different opportunities?
So from an education perspective, was this, Kristen, is this sort of around which specific programs or courses would recommend, or is it more broader? Yeah.
I guess both. It's more so that if students do want to try to find some formal thing that's not school, because that takes a lot of time. So like if they wanted to do something like Coursera or LinkedIn Learning, are there any other platforms like those that you know of? You don't have to necessarily have used them. Just out of curiosity, if there's like a list of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had done like a little list of my favorites. There's a ton of them. And Rachel said earlier, they've exploded. But, you know, my personal favorites, apart from Coursera, are Udemy, Udemy, and Udacity. I don't know why they all start with U, but I guess because of university. Udacity is Udacity. LinkedIn, I think, is great for variety, though here and there it may not be so amazing for like depth, but in terms of variety and no cost. On the technical side, because my career, as these platforms exploded, my career had shifted to the tech side of the world. On the tech side, I also really like Google. Google's online tech courses are excellent. And then the one last comment I would make is look for the biggest or the strongest or the most well-known professional organizations in your field or in your career or in the field you want to get into, and see what they offer. So as an example there, there's an organization in sort of the digital marketing product management side called Pragmatic Marketing, I think, but Pragmatic Institute. And it's really started more of as an organization to help digital marketers and product managers of technical products, but then they turned it into like a school. So now they have like a full-fledged set of courses that you can go and choose like what areas you want to study and get into. But I believe those kinds of organizations exist for different professions. Like I know they exist for programmers and software developers. So those are my thoughts.
Kristen, I want to just add something here. Alex, that's great. I mean, and I know Alex took it from the place of very academic, like, you know, and things that you can get certified. Because I had this conversation with my mentee not too long ago. And so here's something I said, because it depends on maybe if some cost-wise, like, you know, it depends on how much someone can afford. And as a young person, when you're starting out, I am aware that they usually have a small budget, right? So I'm going to talk in terms of soft skills, because Rachel brought this up and she talked about Toastmasters. Now, I don't know how that works for other countries, right? But in the US, I remember joining Toastmasters. But if you don't have much money, it doesn't mean that you don't do anything, because soft skills are very important. I don't care whether you're going to be in a very technical field or if you're going to be in a non-technical field, soft skills are important. But regardless, if you're going to move into management, you have to manage people. That soft skills is primary, right? So you don't have to wait till you take a class or wait till you get promoted into a job where they can pay for the courses. So here's what I remember talking to Olivia, my mentee, and I said, find opportunities, volunteer opportunities. So yes, this might take some extra work, but are there volunteer opportunities through your church? If you, that's one platform, right? And any opportunities where you can facilitate, where you can bring a group together. Your project management skills are going to be important regardless of what job you're going to be doing, because you have to manage people. At some point, you're going to bring people together and you're going to gather them and have these discussions, right? So it's people skills. That's what I'm pointing to, is find opportunities where you can tap into conducting, right, facilitating skills, or even teaching something, because that will give you the comfort and the, how to say, you get more comfortable as you put yourself in uncomfortable places, because you'll start to gain proficiency. And before you know it, you'll develop mastery. It's not just only with soft skills, it's not just only reading a book and, check mark and say, okay, I got it, I got it, I got it. At some point, you're going to have to deal with people. And so the ease with people only comes when you have more practice. So finding opportunities in outside of the technical track where you can practice.
One thing that I want to add, anything that you can do today around AI education is going to be extremely beneficial, right? There's this huge, huge shift going on in the way that we work and live in terms of the era of AI. If anybody's heard the saying, like, should I be worried about AI taking over my job? We all say no, but you should be worried about somebody who uses AI well taking over your job, at least right now. So I think anything that you can do, especially the mentees in GMI tend to be younger and more tech savvy to begin with. Like, you already have a leg up when it comes to embracing these technologies. You're more familiar in some cases than a lot of people who are actually in the workforce. And I think you can use that as a big advantage. There are so many free courses when it comes to AI education, like just downloading the applications and playing around with them. Huge, huge value add, right? Knowing how to prompt in ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini, but also all of them, right? Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, they all have these learning academies that you can do labs or simulations through. So I would just encourage everybody, like, start learning that. It will become a prereq for jobs in the future. And the better that you are with that technology, I think the better you're going to be able to set yourself apart from everybody else who's applying for those same sorts of jobs.
Are there any opportunities, now this will be more kind of personal to you, that you were able to take advantage of at your job or at a previous job that had like professional development within your company? I know some companies might focus more on that than others. So just out of curiosity, if there were opportunities that you had within your company, what were some of those?
Hey, Kristen, sorry, and team, sorry, I have to drop for just 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
Rachel, do you have any opportunities that you were able to take advantage of?
Yeah, I work for Microsoft, and honestly, there's so many resources available. They're very focused on career development. They like to keep talent, so they encourage us to change jobs internally more than any other company I've ever worked for, which is awesome. In terms of things that I've taken advantage of, they have mentorship programs, they have career coaches that we have access to. That's where I got that cadence that I've set up with myself. About every 6 months, I have a check-in and I set time on the calendar. So things like that are a bit more broad and generic have been helpful. And then they do a lot of ongoing education workshops, things like that you can sign up for. Like just today, I was at the office for an autonomous agent building workshop, something AI related. Again, I would encourage everybody to start diving into, but there's never ending opportunities. And I think that's where we're all saying, like, finding the time to take advantage of all of these things that are available will be the hardest part of your professional development, in my opinion. But take advantage of as much as you can. A lot of large companies will even offer like stipends annually. So you can go and, take a management course at a local university and they'll reimburse you for it. Like, those types of things, those benefits go underused. So definitely I would encourage everybody to look into those as you start to get out into the workforce, because so many companies make them available.
Sheila, did you have any opportunities?
When I was, this is my last job in California. When I was transitioning from a trainer to a project manager, I wanted to be a process improvement project manager. And Rachel said something. Some big companies will have tuition reimbursement that they'll pay for, and bosses usually will have money in the budget depending on what programs they're willing to spend on. So I actually took advantage of that. I actually, because I came in as a trainer and I wanted to move into project management, so I did a lateral move. So in order to get as much experience and quickly, because it was a lateral move, what I did was I actually got myself certified as a Six Sigma Green Belt. I also went and got my lean training and then some business analysis training, just so many different trainings that I went and got myself certified while I was working on projects that I was assigned so that I could get, apply what I'm learning and put it into the work. So I really love what Rachel said, because bigger companies and even small companies, you just have to ask, work with your manager to find out what opportunities is available, and then work with your management team to see how you can go ahead and tap into those skills. But primarily, I think this is important. It's not just only doing the training. You have to make sure when you're taking your training, you have to find an opportunity to use that training, because you can read as much as you want. But if you don't apply it, then how do you get proficient in it? How do you gain mastery in a skill that you want to develop, right? So working with your management team is so important so that you can get those opportunities.
Alex, did you have any opportunities at any of your companies to do professional development within? I know you said that you had spoken to your boss about kind of finding ways to move forward, but were there anything within your company?
I mean, yeah, the ladies kind of covered the obvious sort of spots, which is to go look for it, talk to HR, talk to your boss. Sometimes your boss may not know what's even out there. I think there's education and training budgets that go every year without being used because people just don't even know they're there. So ask the question. And if not necessarily just to your boss, but just go directly to HR. HR is typically the group that may be responsible for the funds to pay for education. I guess the one interesting thing I would say is advocate for yourself as well, for yourself and your peers. So, I've had situations where both as someone in a lower part of the organization, as well as someone in a leadership position that went to bat for folks to get budget, to get training. So the concept here is, go to leadership and say, hey, our team would be so much stronger if, it don't necessarily make it about yourself, but you could say, hey, if we got everybody trained in this specific area, or if everyone was accredited in the latest and greatest AI tool, our whole team would be so much more efficient, so much better at what we do. Or that area that you're looking to hire people in, what if we trained our team to do it? And then someone on our team could fill that spot. So sell the idea to leadership in your company, big or small, that it's actually going to benefit the company if yourself and your peers are better trained. And potentially you could be surprised. You'll get help from the company to pay for your professional development.
One other question that we had is what to do when you're starting to notice stagnation in your profession. So obviously the move is to find professional development, but if you're just you're stuck where you are, what would be some tips to find a way out of that or up from there? Sheila?
I actually had this experience, so I'll share it. I got transferred into a department, and the boss didn't quite like having me in the team. And so for 6 months, I didn't have any work to do. And there was no reason to fire me. And I'm saying this is because, I mean, maybe this is not supposed to be like, in work world, you'll have many stuff that would hit you. And why I'm talking about this is because this is part of real world. You don't give up, right? Just because you got a job and then, if things don't work out, you don't just say, okay, I'm ready to quit. I'm going. Sometimes it could just be political and you're just the bystander in there that caught in this situation. And that was my case. So for 6 months, I really didn't have any work. And I remembered asking myself, Sheila, are you going to give up, or what are you going to do with this time? And so this is what I did. I said, all my career, I've always wished I had more time to do the different kind of trainings I wanted to learn, or just sit down with different people and do informal mentoring so that I can learn more. So during this period that I felt I was stagnant, that is exactly what I did. And little did I realize that I was going to gain a lot out of this, because I actually could work the plan. I said, I have time. What are all the things that I didn't have an opportunity when I was working in different roles that I said, one day when I have more time, I'll do it. I actually took that time and I worked on it. So some of the things I did was taking the opportunity to take more courses that I never had. I Informational interviews are my big thing. I don't only do it just to get a job, but it's continuous learning, right? Different people who have insights, knowledge that can help you see things from a different perspective, because you can get so caught in your little world and want it to be in a certain way. But when you start talking to different people, you realize, oh, you know what? I never saw it from that perspective. So I also started tapping into that. I started tapping into having different mentors, because different mentors that could help me develop different skill set. So there were just so many opportunities that I was tapping into. And I think primarily is making sure that I don't give up on myself. I think it's very easy to sit in that place and look and say, oh, you know what, the boss is not right. Well, I really don't like this team. You can always look for faults if you want. They're always there. Flaws are all over, right? But it's how you choose to look at the situation. If you don't like a situation, you got to ask yourself, what is it that you don't like about it? And what can you do within your sphere to control it? And that's the only thing you can focus on. So that's what I did in this experience was I used that time to develop myself.
Yeah,
Alex?
I mean that makes a lot of sense. This question is actually pretty philosophical, right? Because this could apply to your career in so many different ways, and to yourself as a person in so many ways. The one constant in life is change. Things are not going to stay the same, and if you're not sort of, I mean, don't make it feel laborious like homework, but if you're not sort of prepping yourself for the future, then the future is going to catch you unawares. So, the constancy of professional development, something both Sheila and Rachel have talked about the whole time here, is that you're constantly looking at ways to improve yourself as a professional, get into the habit, make it a part of your daily life. It's the way people who need to start working out need to make the workout or the walk or the run, whatever it is, a part of their daily life. It's the same thing with professional development. Think about it as a mental workout or as a career workout. So constancy for sure will help when you hit that moment of stagnation. The fact that you've been making yourself better is going to make you more attractive and is going to make you more ready to figure out the next step and get out from where you are. The other funny thing I just scribbled down here, because I don't think we've talked about it, is a part of professional development and career development is networking. And so one key area where networking helps you is to move on to the next step. So if you're in stagnation, and whether it's you want to stay where you are, but you want to expand your role, the networking you've done inside that company can help you find projects to expand yourself. If it's, hey, I just need to get out of this organization and find greener pastures somewhere else, then networking you've done outside of your organization will then help you to find that opportunity outside of the organization. So, you know, the term stagnation is somewhat general. There's so many different reasons why you might be stalling, but I think the first hurdle is to figure out if you want to stay in the organization or get out. And then that sort of determines what your paths will be. So that's that, those are some of my thoughts. Rachel, do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, networking is an super, super good point to bring up. I don't think we've talked a lot about it today. I would say that's like the single most important thing in career advancement is your personal brand and like the network that you have around you. You could be the best worker, but if you're not good at promoting yourself, if you're not good at talking about your impact and showing how you've done things that truly impact the business and the bottom line, and you don't have a network to support you, like you're just not going to be able to move up in an organization. So continuously building your network and being able to do that kind of increase in visibility by sharing wins and leading different initiatives is so, so, so important for moving around, moving up, whether it's internally or externally. For me, stagnation is always like alarm bell and I've felt it many times in my career. I think it's inevitable. Like I've been in situations where I've been put in a role that, you know, I was placed in, and it wasn't necessarily something that I applied for. And this will happen in your career. Like roles just sort of happen upon you and you have to adjust. And I think to Sheila's point, like you look at it as, oh my God, I'm stuck here. Like then you're going to be stuck there. If you look at it as an opportunity of, I have all this time to really be thoughtful about the professional development that I want to do and where I want to go, whether it's changing what this role means by taking on, you know, different elements and sort of making the role what's going to be beneficial to you, or it's getting out of the role. But stagnation, never a good thing. When it happens to you, when you feel it, when you feel complacent or stuck, like that should be a sign that you need to take some action, because that's just not a fulfilling way to spend your time. I think that leads to resentment and just not liking showing up at work, and we spend an awful lot of time working. So it's definitely something to pay attention to immediately when you feel it.
Person, can I add something
Yes.
on top of what Alex and Rachel said? I didn't think about it until I was hearing them share. In the place of stagnation, sometimes when you want to make a jump from, well, you basically want to get out of the job and get to something else, but you can't say that, right? It's going to take a little time. Here's something else that I think that we may not always look at it as a positive, but I definitely would encourage people, if they're ever stagnant in that place and they need a little time before they can find another opportunity. While you're in that current role, sit down with your boss and look to see where you can volunteer. It might be in a different area. You know, another group might be needing some extra help. It might not be exactly the project that you want to work on, or may not be a high visible project that gives you a name down the road, but using that time, right? Because you can sit and feel discouraged, or you can use that time and say, where can I roll up my sleeves and support different groups that need my help? And working with your manager, that actually will help you build skills that you never thought of, maybe potentially working with another group. And before you know it, you realize, oh, yeah, you know what? I guess I can do this too. But it also gives you an opportunity, right, for you to connect with other people. People know people. So if you're looking for a position within the company, if the company's big enough, when you help other people, people are more likely to kind of want to see how they can help you back. So that's also another avenue to eventually potentially finding another job within the company, but with a different group.
That was all great advice. We're coming towards the end of our time. I just wanted to know if Alex, Rachel, Sheila, if you have any closing remarks, or I know the moral of the story that I've gotten away from this at least is like start your professional development today, and kind of get your plan going. But is there anything else that you have any parting words for?
I do. And we all said it. We may all have used a different way of saying it, but this is what we meant. Keep a very positive attitude, right? And I think this is extremely important. Your career is not going to be 1, 2 years. You're gonna, however long you choose to work in an organization, or if you want to eventually create your own business, you're going to be in the workforce for a long time. And throughout that time that you're going to be in the workforce, not every job, not every boss, not every team that you're going to work with is going to be the best, and you're going to be so happy. So it's very easy to, if you're not happy, it's very easy to kind of get down your emotions, your feelings, right? And that can kind of derail you from staying very committed to your professional career. So my thing is always stay positive, because no one can take your power away unless you give it away. And be committed to yourself that if you want to grow and you want to be a better person, not just only in the work front, whatever you do in the work front is going to impact you in your personal life. Vice versa, whatever you do in your personal life, if you slack off there, it's going to eventually impact your work, because you are who you are, right? So when you keep that in the forefront and with a positive attitude, you'll always be able to kind of move forward. Even during the hard times, you won't be looking and saying, I wish this didn't happen. But instead, you're going to say, what can I do to make the best out of the circumstances? So that is my parting words.
Alex?
I think I would just say, never stop learning. I think that kind of touches on a lot of the things we've talked about. It touches on learning from others. That's through networking and finding mentors. It touches on the informal professional development, like reading, and working with organizations outside of work. And it touches on the constancy that's needed. You just constantly need to be broadening your horizons through just growing your mental capacity, your view of the world, your skill set. It's just don't stop learning. And the one thing I was thinking about is, for most of my career, especially once I moved above sort of entry level jobs, once I started to move in towards sort of low to middle management, it seemed like every single boss, every new boss I ever had a book to give me. They were like, hey, now that you've joined my team, or now that you have this role, you need to read this and tell me next week what you think about it, or some version of that, or favorite authors. Hey, go read something by John Smith. And so what's interesting about that to me is essentially those who were in leadership, they had been practicing this their whole career. And so as they looked to mentor me as I was moving up, they wanted to give me that practice, by exposing me to their favorite people, the people they felt they'd learned from. And that cemented in my mind that, hey, this is something that leaders do. They've practiced this constant learning, this constant development for their whole careers. And when they speak to people who are coming up in the organization, they try and pull them in, to that same thing. So that's what I would say. Don't stop learning.
Rachel?
I would say don't be afraid to ask for help. One mentor that I had years ago gave me the advice of you're probably not the first person with that goal, right? So there's people who have blazed this trail. If you want to be like, the SVP of sales or a CFO at a company, like people are doing that, right? Don't be afraid to reach out to those people, and don't just be planning for the next job that you want to have. You want to be planning 5, 10, 15, 20 years out in the future. So if somebody has a job that you want at some point in the future, I've always found it helpful to have an informational interview, right? And ask them, not only are you learning about like their job, but the path that they took to get that job. And they probably have so many suggestions that they'd be happy to share with you. People like to help people, especially people who are early in career, that can help you sort of pinpoint like what's going to be helpful professional development wise. So I would just encourage you, like, yeah, Copilot's a great resource. I know I talked a lot about AI today, but people like to help people. And there are a lot of people out there who likely have careers or jobs that are interesting to you that you can easily pick their brain for advice.
Well, I think that's all amazing advice. Thank you, the three of you, for taking the time to do this. I know I learned a lot, so I imagine everybody else will as well. If anybody has any questions, feel free to email me, or you can send a comment or question over through this invite, and I can always get back to you. Otherwise, I hope you all enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great rest of your day/night. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye. Take
Bye.
care.